You won't believe it, but Governor Abbott's actually put this barrier out there, and this is hilarious. I can't believe it. The Department of Justice, our own government, is suing him because he's interfering with their plan on letting illegal people get in the United States. He's interrupting the plan of Washington. I guess that's it. Why else would they be suing him? But it's even more hilarious. Mexico's joining, and they're saying, and yes, we don't like that barrier either. You can't make this stuff up, people. But the Barbie reviews, this blew my mind, reading Ben Shapiro's discussion on Barbie. It's cultural. You got to get the culture in there. You got to know what's happening, and this is our way of keeping an eye on that. Now, I want to say something here, which is pretty important. Every show I do it, and I have to be, my son helps me, and he counts me down. I love his energy. And he introduced me to these pure chocolate energy supplements. It's so funny because in the back they have Isaiah 40:31. Must be a Christian company, but he liked it. And I started, I take these, chew on one of these. I love the little chocolate energy. I didn't know that chocolate's an antioxidant. I didn't know it's a natural appetite suppressant. I didn't know that with the recipe that they use, it's kosher, and gluten-free and non-GMO and dairy-free and soy-free. I mean, it's vegan-friendly, made in the USA. But the main thing is I take one of these and boom, I'm great. I do Flashpoint. I got one of these little chocolate chewies. Tell you what, when you need that energy, it's pure chocolate energy, people. Why don't you go to lancewallnau.com/energy and check it out and tell me and tell my son Carl, what do you think? We love it. Actually, it works good for me. And I think you're going to love it. Let's get right into the show after you get your energy. You know, I was surprised the other day, Jordan Peterson was doing an interview with RFK Jr. And he was boasting about the fact that YouTube's been very kind with him, hasn't taken him off the air yet. And RFK said, well, you know, Kennedy said, I hope that works for you, but he's been banned. I mean, you can't get him on YouTube. You can't get him on Facebook. You can't, I guess on Twitter's the only place he is, right? It's pathetic how the left is suppressing. This is a Democrat, and they don't want you to hear him. He's not a Democrat. See, you have to be a Marxist on the inside of the club in order to make. He's an old school Democrat. But it was interesting because I mean I don't know how informed he is. If you listen to the interview, he sounds a bit naive. I'm serious about this. If you really listen with our perception of history. He says, well, you know, the right does, conservatives always had the big money comes to them, which would be from energy and from the pharmaceuticals. So that's where the left goes after the big money donors and then the pharmaceuticals. And they play the same game because Democrats traditionally were never good at that. Democrats are flush with money. You know, Biden right now has $2 billion. I don't even know if it's from the United States. I think it could be from the Mexican drug cartels through a shell corporation or through some other government. $2 billion, he's sitting on a war chest at $2 billion. He doesn't even have to campaign. It's crazy. Anyway, Jordan Peterson says, well, he's talking to Kennedy about where's the line on the left? I mean, how far on the right we at least have a line, we're afraid of being called, a nationalist and violent or extremists but on the left, I mean, from Antifa all the way down to, passing regulations and legislation in California so that you can have sex with a 14-year-old boy. That's Gavin Newsom's great contribution to American culture, but there's no line on the left. I mean, there's no cutoff point. There's go right over a cliff, transgender, boom, right over a cliff. Well, Kennedy wouldn't answer him. And then Jordan Peterson said, well, I'm talking about, where do you stand, with DEI? And Kennedy didn't know what he was talking about. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, the very cornerstone of the Marxist destruction of meritocracy, which means, that you no longer get a job based upon competency. You get a job based upon if you can sell yourself as a political persecuted minority. So if you're, if you're transgender, then you get moved to the front of the list of people that are going to be hired because theoretically, diversity, equity, and inclusion would move you to the front because there's too many other people. So why don't you listen to, I think the acronym is wrong. I think we ought to stop using their language. One of the problems is we listen to the left and we use their language. Gender affirming care for chemical castration of your child. gender-affirming care. I think we got to start challenging all the goofy terms that come up and they go, no, that's not what it is. I think DEI, it should be DIE, because you got the same letters there, call it DIE, because it's diversity, inclusion, and equity. Put it there because that's what's going to happen to your corporations, your education, and even your planes if you follow the woke ideology of diversity, inclusion, and equity. Check out what Rob Schneider has to say.
CEO of United Airlines last month, the CEO, he announced of all the hiring for all the new pilots that are coming up this year, all the hiring for the new pilots, the main focus is going to be diversity. What? Diversity? Not the best pilots you can find? The ones with the most hours of experience? Ones you've done it before? Nope, diversity. I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of flying all the time with these white pilots landing safely and on time. Boring.
Wow. The point is, do you really want to go there? And this is what I'm always saying, because I fly like 2 million miles. I check out the cabin. I have no idea when the knuckleheads at the CEO woke corporate headquarters start putting people in there that I didn't want to fly with because I'm afraid they're going to have some kind of crises in the middle of the air. So where do you think this is going to go? Do you think any of these Hollywood liberal elites are going to go for plastic surgery and they're going to check out, they're going to say, it doesn't matter who does it, do the diversity index. I want somebody that's never been, never gotten a break. Let them work on the bags under my eyes. I doubt it. You're not going to see it in the medical profession. You're not going to see it in plastic surgery. Liposuction, we'll use liquid plumber. That'll work. Now, let's watch what happens. There's a certain point where what sounds good in the woke classroom actually doesn't work in the workplace. And you'll see the pushback. It happens as people become aware. What is, because most people are like sheep. They're like led, they're being led, and then you want me to eat what? Insects? What? You're taking away the hamburger? I can't eat that? What is this? It's a plastic, it's not real meat? There's gonna be a backlash. It just takes a while for people to kind of like register what's going on here. But the crazy index is at full tilt boogie right now, which brings me to, you can't make this stuff up. I should have a segment. You can't make this stuff up. But the Justice Department is suing Texas because it's interrupting the quota of fentanyl, sex slave trades, and gangs getting into the United States. That's pretty much what it is. The Justice Department is suing the state of Texas because Greg Abbott has declined to remove 1,000 feet of floating barrier on the Rio Grande River. 1,000 feet. Now get this straight. You got to hear this. There's 1,200 miles of penetratable border. 1,200 miles, 1,000 feet. They put a little barrier down there. I mean, I even wonder how much of this is real news. And this floating barrier of barrels that spin around with barbed wire on the top, very hard to get over. And basically it's designed for the purpose of discouraging people trying to get in that 1,000-foot place. But that's not good enough for the Justice Department. The Justice Department says you're actually putting migrants at risk. You're not being humanitarian. And of course, they're going to find some woke one state trooper. And they'll always have somebody, a Greta Thunberg, whatever her name is. They'll find something. And state trooper said this is not very humanitarian. Well, you'd almost think it would hurt people. Well, that's the point. It's to discourage people from trying to do it. Texas trooper deployed as part of the Operation Lone Star told the supervisor earlier this month that the razor wire and barrels, they're inhuman. The floating barrier poses threats to navigation and public safety. It presents humanitarian concerns, Associate Attorney General Vanita Gupta said in a statement. So the White House, I love this. The White House spokesman said, hey, Biden's reduced, listen, he's heard your complaints. He's actually reduced border crossings by 30%. He didn't bother to say that they're up 70%. They're down 30%. I love that. It's like when my wife tells me she's saving me money. You won't believe the amount of money I saved you today. Right away, I'm saying, how much did it cost? So the Justice Department is being sued, but I got to follow the conversation here. Governor Abbott is talking about the sovereign authority of Texas. This is the sheep and goat scenario of the Bible. Sheep, I believe, is going to be, you're going to see end-time nations like Hungary, and you're going to see it happening in Europe right now. The populist nationalist versus the globalist beast. The globalist beast is really what the Bible calls the beast. It's an empire system which doesn't respect borders. You remember when they were fighting Trump on the wall when he first started, when his campaign was going on, and the activists funded by George and Soros and others were down there saying no borders, no walls, no USA at all, no borders, no wall, no you. That's what basically we voted into office. No borders and no walls. No walls in the bedroom, no walls between parents and children, no walls between genders, no walls between the government and infinite capacity to spend money, no walls between your national boundaries and other countries, no walls. How does that work out? Try flying a plane without a wall. Oh, the window's gone. Who cares? President Biden's Department of Justice threatened to sue Texas over the marine barriers we deployed on the Rio Grande. Greg Abbott says in this tweet, Mr. President, Texas will see you in court. We will utilize our sovereign authority. Sovereign authority is a key word I want you to catch. Here's what he says. If you truly care about human life, Mr. President, you must begin enforcing federal immigration laws. Just enforce the laws in the books. Crime syndicate. By doing so, you can help me stop migrants from wagering their lives in the waters of the Rio Grande River. You can also help me save Texans and indeed all Americans from deadly drugs like fentanyl, cartel violence, and the horrors of human trafficking. To end the risk that migrants will be harmed crossing the border illegally, you must fully enforce the laws of the United States prohibit illegal immigration between ports of entry. In the meantime, Texas will fully utilize its constitutional authority to deal with the crises that you have caused. Well, it took a long time for us Texans to get Greg Abbott to go there, and he's finally done it. But it does strike me as being interesting that with 1,200 miles, this 1,000 barrel buoy barrier is considered to be the humanitarian crisis of the century, the inhumanity of the inhumanity. And the floating barrier also provoked tensions with Mexico. Oh, wait a second, it's not just us. Mexico says it violates certain treaties. Treaties that they have with who? I guess with the Catalina drug cartel. I mean, they got a negotiated agreement there. Mexico's Secretary of Foreign Relations asked the U.S. government to remove those buoys and razor wires in June. They're arguing that border crossings aren't covered by the Texas Disaster Act. They're actually taking on Texas and the United States saying, hey, wait a second. Since when do you have the right to determine who goes into your country? Mexico doesn't even like it. They're saying, tear down that wall. Well, isn't that fascinating? So you got Mexico and the United States government fighting with Texas over trying to stop fentanyl and drug trafficking and gangs from coming into their backyard. What's going to happen next? Well, I think he should just put a giant Barbie barrier up, a barbed wire Barbie barrier. That's what I'm talking about. Float that plastic Barbie out there. Let's see what happens when we come back. I want to talk about Barbie. We'll be right back. Everybody is concerned about what's happening to the economy. I mean, it wouldn't be too far conjecture to say that it's almost as though America is experiencing a recession that looks like it could be heading into a depression. And I'm praying that Donald Trump's prophecy that you'll see a depression the likes of which you've never seen never happens. But you know, the guy was uncannily accurate in so many things he said. That's why I'm telling my friends to go to Birch Gold right now, lancewallnau.com/Birch. Get the 25-page report on how you can protect your wealth, protect your investments, protect your IRA, protect your retirement. The report that they give you is an explanation as to how commodities and gold and silver variously work during periods of time when the dollar is unstable. I'm telling you, you need to get the education. Knowledge is power. lancewallnau.com/Birch. You won't regret it. Well, it wouldn't be America if we didn't have a tale of two stories here. The story of the Sound of Freedom, which has to claw its way, crowdfunded after 4 years of Disney suppression, into the top of American consciousness, breaking the $100 million barrier, kind of like like an Olympian sprinter running. Boom, it's still going. Talking about this issue of child sex trafficking, which, by the way, makes more sense when you understand the Epstein story now. What makes much more sense to understand what comes through the borders, because you see those children, those minors that are coming through the borders are being paired off with adults that aren't their parents. Do you think this is all some kind of underground Catholic agency to try to help the poor and the underprivileged find opportunity in the United States? No, the Catholics are helping and aiding and abetting the captivity and the trafficking in their ignorance. Now, these aren't Catholics that are meeting them. These are the sex traffickers, the handlers that are taking these kids, and they're being paired off. Our government's making sure, bye-bye, bye-bye, welcome to America, don't forget to vote, vote Democrat. So off they go. And that's what's also coming through the border. You can see why they couldn't have Carrie Lake. No, they couldn't have Carrie Lake because she would have locked it up there in Arizona, and it would have put a serious crimp into who knows what kind of perversities in high places are inconvenienced by this. And you understand the majority of the migrants that are coming through are actually being brought in by the big corporations that want to have the free labor, cheaper labor. And I don't have to tell you this, you're a smart audience. But the Democrats run on this, they're there for the poor, the working man, the inner city crowd, which is getting ripped off all the time by the lousy cities, crime. But what they don't bother to say is they're undercutting the earning capacity of minorities, Hispanics and black, African Americans especially, because they're bringing in competing labor that'll work for less. You got to understand how this works, and it's happening on such a scale. I think there ought to be, instead of the IRS having people go to people's houses in order to, go shake them down for taxes, I think we should loose them on every field that's out there where the agricultural community is working with cheap labor, and we ought to do a forensic analysis of every employee's where they came from, what they're getting paid, how they're getting paid. I mean, that would be, but you'll never hear that done. But I'm just saying, you understand the logic of this? There's a business in bringing in cheap labor, and somebody should be targeting where that labor is coming from and go get the taxes from those corporations for gaming the system. Anyway, I wanted to go there because the opening weekend for Barbie went down a rabbit trail there. Barbie is like over 120 million already, but Barbie is like G.I. Joe. These are the iconic little action figures that your children of 6 to 8, play with or something like that. I remember how my daughter had a Barbie, and the reason I know about the Barbie is because in the middle of the night, I heard her crying, and I went to her room and I stepped on Barbie. But what you got to know about Barbie is that Barbie, Barbie didn't have, I don't know if Barbie had a top on or not, but Barbie's boobs actually pierced the bottom of my heel because I hit it with such force. And I screamed out in agony to see what it was I had stepped on, and it was my daughter's Barbie. So that's how I discovered Barbie in my house. Now, my daughter never saw Barbie as a symbol of male oppression, even though I could relate to Barbie as a source of pain in my own life. And I think that the movie has succeeded in its box office showing because Americans saw something that, Barbie, it was marketed as though it's going to be a fun, nostalgic journey for parent and child, but wasn't Toy Story. Ben Shapiro got majorly skewered. I mean, he did a tweet, I think, that had 60 million views. That's how America was fascinated, because he said he was going to go review Barbie. And of course, Ben, who realizes clearly that the movie is propaganda, he was furious when he thought about how it's being used to poison the minds of little girls in America and used basically with a hate men narrative. But let's go hear the rant from Ben. And I apologize if the expletive deletives that we bleep out offend you. Just use your imagination. Listen, Joe Rogan has, I don't know, like how many millions of people listen to him, and he's dropping F-bombs all over the place. I'm always thinking, well, evidently the tolerance of America for this colorful speech is far greater than I thought. But I know I've got a conservative Christian audience. Just toughen up, Buttercup. I want you to hear Ben.
This movie is not just a piece of This movie is a flaming piece of piled atop an entire dumpster on fire, piled atop a landfill filled with who thought it's a great idea? Let's bring on the people who wrote Lady Bird and Marriage Story to make a movie about a plastic doll that is generally played with by 5 to 9-year-old young girls. I was trying to separate this into problems with plot and problems with character and problems with the politics of the film, but they're all intertwined because the thing is just a mess. Plot-wise, it makes no sense. Character-wise, it makes no sense. This movie is 2 hours. It feels like it is longer than the Wagnerian ring cycle. It does not end. Every scene is at least 2 minutes too long. Every beat is 2 minutes too long. Putting the politics aside, it is a bad movie. So why is it getting 91% on Rotten Tomatoes? Because the way that it works for the reviewers is if you have the right politics, and those politics are sufficiently slyly inserted, then it will get a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, even if the thing is just dreck. Let's jump into it. I have like pages and pages of notes on this horrific piece of I mean, my goodness.
I love Ben. Anyway, what was his joke there? He said this thing was like longer than a Wagnerian ring cycle. What was that? I guess it's a Wagner opera, right? Like Der Meistersinger or, Tristan and Isolde or something he's talking about. Anyway, Wagnerian ring cycle. I want to read you some of his notes here because I thought you would benefit from them in the classic Shapiro style. I just want you to know. I understand why I'm upset. What I'm upset about is the lie. And the left freaked out over the fact that he dared criticize the movie. I mean, it's almost like The Sound of Freedom. When the left criticizes it, like, oh, it's it's QAnon. It isn't. Nothing about QAnon. It's about sex trafficking with children, you knucklehead. Anyway, so they're all upset with Ben. And he says it's because he's offending their religion. He says it's a religion. The ideology of the left is religious. He's an Orthodox Jew, and he can tell you he knows a religion when he sees one. He makes a very interesting proposition. So I understand why I'm upset. What I'm upset about is the lie. You created a movie that is specifically designated for little girls, and you slide in a bunch of left-wing imagery and propaganda about how terrible little girls have it in the United States. Oh, the whining machine of the left. I'm telling you, pop culture is shaped by pissed-off progressives. That's what the pop culture is. Did it ever occur to you that you act like you're more religious than I am? I'm the one here in the yarmulke attesting to my belief in God, but you guys are wearing your Barbie shirts in attestation to your idolatry of a sexual revolution movement that's played out and is ripped with deep unhappiness that you refuse to acknowledge. Barbie's a movie that was marketed to children. It's a movie, PG-13, but clearly marketed at moms and their 8-year-old daughters. The entire movie is a feminist diatribe about the evils of the modern patriarchy, men in culture. Don't you dare comment in the wrong way about Greta Gerwig, the writer-director, whom they're giving the Jordan Peele treatment or the Taylor Swift treatment or the Beyonce treatment. There are certain cultural idols that when you criticize them, you violated the sacred honor of the Vestal Virgins. To understand, you have to understand that Greta Gerwig is now representative of an actual religious worldview. Then he goes on to make the point. She really does have a religious worldview. He says, that's because I know that, because I actually have a religious worldview, because they have a religious worldview that can't be attacked. If you attack their worldview as bad or wrong, it means that you're a heretic. You must be punished. I've actually received death threats over my Barbie review. Why? Because there's an ideology. It is the ideology of the sexual revolution. It's been promulgated by the social left in this country, and it lies at the center of everything they think. Now, I know I'm reading this to you, and Mercedes was here. She'd say, stop reading that. But I'm reading it because it's great. If you say, for example, that women should have children, that they should get married, and men should get married, that men should have children, if you say that the height of human aspiration is not sexual pleasure or an individualistic pursuit of subjective success, that there are things you should do in this life that are higher and better. If you do that, that's a violation of the agreement that they think you're supposed to have, which is the place at the center of their narcissistic view of the world. Now, Greta Gerwig is an overrated director, an overrated writer, and her ideology is false. It doesn't ring true. And astonishingly, she compared her work to the Apostles' Creed, the affirmation of certain core Christian beliefs. That's her language, not mine. She apparently saw the Barbie movie as a way of rebutting certain presumptions about the Bible itself. The creation myth, the kind of creation myth is the opposite of the creation myth in Genesis. She said it herself. She's putting a narrative out that's competing with Genesis. So there's something that's deeper than a mere sort of cultural stupidity happening here. Greta Gerwig is channeling a reverse biblical morality into a movie that's directed at children, and you're not supposed to notice it. Well, here, Ben Shapiro. I fling my yarmulke in your direction. My Monica. I think that he's saying exactly what needs to be said. The left is notorious for embedding their narrative in popular culture. Well, we have a lot more we have to talk about here. We have Twitter X, Elon Musk's strategy for rebranding Twitter. I wanted to talk to you about the exclusive Charlie Kirk calling out the cowardly churches adopting left-wing politics, and I thought I would join him on that. And the IRS is ending decades-long practice of visiting taxpayers' home unannounced. They said it wasn't really working. Yeah, sure. We all look forward to having the IRS visit unannounced. And this is the irony of it. This is crazy. Wait to hear this. They're doing it temporarily while they restructure because they spent $10 million in 2020 on retrofitting them so that they can all carry weapons. I guess what they're planning on doing is they're going to come back when they can pack. That way they'll come back and knock on your door and show you they got a gun. And that'll go over like a rat sandwich. Okay, but that's the IRS for you. Always thinking of new ways to serve the public with the Democratic Party. Oh, by the way, the 80,000 extra agents and all that stuff that they were adding in there, it's all part of the Inflation Reduction Act. You know how the left's going to reduce inflation, don't you? They're going to squeeze more money out of you with an IRS that has a gun. Speaking of squeezing things out of you, let me just say something real quick. I'm watching the BRICS nations. The Brazil and Russia, and Putin is not going to go down to this meeting. He's afraid that he's going to get arrested. So you can't make this stuff. I feel somehow like we're living a script that's being written up there in the cosmic arena. It's like, hey, let's put this in the script. Anyway, it's Brazil and Russia and India and China. Oh yeah, how could I forget? And then you've got Saudi Arabia. They all hate the United States. They want to bring us down. They hate the use of financial sanctions, and they're meeting in order to undermine the use of the dollar. This is going to come home, folks. I don't want any illusions about it because they're all going towards gold. They look at the American system of going to the 30 to 40 to $50 trillion debt. All these countries are saying, you're not serious, America, about handling your fiscal status. And we just shove all of our debt out there. And as long as you're the one world reserve currency, you could play that game. But they're shoving that money back. I'll tell you what, it won't happen overnight, but the shift has already begun. The world is creating its own competing system against the United States. You don't want to lose the favor of God in your nation because this is how it starts to manifest. And these guys are like destroying America's reputation globally. And I'm telling you right now, the BRICS nations are, when they come out with the gold-backed currency as they work this thing out, the international banks are going towards gold because they're all worried about what's going to happen with the dollar. Paper doesn't have any meaning anymore. It's not pegged to anything. That's why I'm telling you want to go to LanceWallnau.com/Birch. Isn't that what we do? LanceWallnau.com/Birch. And talk to them about how you can protect the wealth that you have by moving it into the direction of gold, silver, and other commodities that will sustain their value. You don't want to wait until that dollar goes any further in the wrong direction. You want to take care of this proactively right now. It's kind of like, it's like when we do the food supply, when I talked about getting your food supply. You don't want to wait until you have a blackout or a power out or a hurricane to go get the food. You got to get it ahead of time. I want you to go to LanceWallnau.com/Birch. Talk to them They'll give you a consultation. I work with these guys. I actually talk to them every month and discuss with them strategies. It'll work for you, works for me, works for my friends. And God bless you. I'll be looking forward to seeing you on our next Lance Wallnau Show.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.